Welcome back to the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast, brought to you by Vaughn Custom Sports. I'm host Jeff Lerg. Today, along with me is our co-host and producer, Natalie Ferenc. Nat, welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
We're excited to have us two today. Coach Chris Palmer, I call him Coach because he's a mental performance coach. He is traveling this week. Chris had an amazing opportunity. He's down in Fort Bragg. Where is it, Nat? Fayetteville?
Yep, I think that's right. I'm not going to try and say it.
North Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina.
Okay, yeah, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And Chris is down there. He's working with the U.S. Army with their Special Operations Forces, I believe.
Yeah, very cool.
And he is speaking in front of about 600 people. So he had shared with me how excited he was about this opportunity. So we're happy for Chris working with Olympians, now with the Special Forces, and he's speaking to them before and after their training sessions. So Natalie and I will take it today.
Yeah, awesome. When you don't have Chris, you got me. So yeah. I hope you like it.
That's right. So we'll get into it. We've had a couple great weeks of watching and recapping the Olympics, and we're going to do that again one more time because we were spoiled with some amazing athletes. Whether they were from the U.S. or not, we enjoyed just watching these athletes find their way to success. And as always, we'll start with our questions here from some of our listeners. I know we had at least one of the collegiate athletes write in. So Nat, let's hear what was written in this week.
Yeah. So again, I'm Natalie Ferenc, who is the producer of this podcast. And our first question reads, what do you think is the biggest difference between your success and players who did not make it to the professional levels in hockey from college?
Practice habits. Easy answer for me. That was something that I know was the only reason I was able to overcome some of the adversity I had along the way. And also it's what gave me the confidence for when the lights were shining and the game time happened. And I took a ton of pride in that. So practice habits, hands down for me was the key difference maker in going from college to pro and then being able to stay at the pro length for almost 10 years.
Yeah, awesome answer. I mean, I'm not cool enough to say that I played professional hockey, but I did play college hockey. And even though this question doesn't apply to me, I will say something that I've noticed is just your internal drive to be great or want to have a spot. The biggest question you can ask yourself, in my opinion, is if you're in practice and you're playing a game, are you going all in like it's an actual game? Or if you get pulled and your starting spot gets taken, are you doing everything you possibly can in practice to get that spot back? Or are you kind of just like waiting and hoping the new starting goalie messes up and it's your turn again just because?
Yep. I say the figure it out button. You got to hit it.
Exactly. So our second question reads, what is the biggest piece of advice you could give someone aiming towards pro hockey someday?
Well, it's not easy. First off, that's the key advice. You want to dream and set your goals to get there. I think it's always important to shoot for the stars, and really it should give you that starting motivation. We talk about how motivation can spark you to really take action, but it's the discipline that'll be the long-lasting answer on whether you get there or not. So set your goals and then to have that discipline, self-discipline in more specifics in order to try to go accomplish that.
Yeah, and I know those are all habits that we say repeatedly on this podcast, but do you really have anything that you can maybe give an example of something that really would set you apart?
Like pro hockey, the mindset that kind of transitions from youth to junior to college, you feel more cared for, like it's a team environment. You're cared for by those leaders and mentors. And then when you get to pro hockey, you're just a chess piece. Like you're in one day, out the next. It's perform or be let go. And so that expectation going in is valid to know. It's very valuable to know, I should say, because you don't want to expect that. It's not that they don't care about you. They're still human beings, but it's a job and you either perform or you're let go.
Yeah, that's a huge reality, bringing the fact that it's actually a job. You have to perform to make a living or you're gone. So yeah, awesome pieces of advice for that. And I hope that answered your question. But now we're going to transition into our dialed in athletes. And I wanted to be special today, and I'm going to do 2 teams.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I am going to speak on both hockey teams in the recent Olympics, men's and women's, because it is the first time in ever, actually, that both have swept and won gold. So very huge accomplishment for USA Hockey.
Yeah, it was big, and we're a border town to Canada, so obviously we grew up always hearing, Canada invented the game, and they were kind of the king of the mountain. So super exciting for USA Hockey to, I know they've put a ton of time and resources and energy on building up our program through many years, so they were rewarded. I know they had to be all fired up about that accomplishment, especially at both teams.
Yeah, and the men's ended their 46-year gold drought. If you know, the 1980 Olympics.
Which Miracle on Ice. We were not born, but yeah. Keep going.
Yep. And another cool fact is that the women have met Canada in the finals every single year except one since 1998. So huge rivalry between US and Canada, men's and women's side. So it's very cool that we got to see that rivalry, especially because we're in Michigan and we're right next to Canada. So we really, really know what it's like.
These athletes, they'll train and skate on either side of the border a lot of times during their regular seasons or even in their off seasons. And then when it comes to international play, everyone is just super loyal to their homeland. So it's fun to see that dynamic. On the female front, you named it, US and Canada have really been the powerhouses. It's been everyone else trying to catch up to them, which they haven't quite gotten there yet. Obviously, we had another great rematch on the women's side. And on the men's side, it has not been that 1-2 punch for the many years of US and Canada. Now US has really gotten their program up to a top caliber level, and it was fun to see them get rewarded. Interesting, like from our area here in Metro Detroit, many athletes who skate and train or are from Michigan, and Metro Detroit in particular, had a big impact on both the men's and women's sides. So it's super cool, which leads me into my dial-in athlete, Farmington Hills resident and native Megan Keller. Okay, so she grew up in our area. This is the city that I'm from now, and where our Future Pro USA kind of headquarters is located at suburban nice Farmington Hills. So Megan and the Keller family, they've been family friends of ours for many years with my parents, and gotten to see her and kind of track her career for many years. Coincidentally, Natalie and I work out of this space at the Athlete Lab in Farmington Hills, and in our little cubby breakout room that we work out of every day is the Megan Keller jersey.
Yep, so signed jersey.
What did I tell you as to why she got the OT winner?
Because every single day, Jeff Lerg sits there, and it's just the room presence that makes her dialed in. And
Natalie Ferenc, she had the dialed in driven mentality.
Yep.
Through the osmosis with no water, but it got to her because. But anyways, yeah. So we're good fans of Megan, and I mean, she's a defenseman. Seeing her skate and train throughout many years, that's normally not in her arsenal, but that was a huge moment. That's why she's my dialed-in athlete. She made an amazing play at the biggest moment of her hockey career. So far. Yeah, so far. And so that was super cool to see. Especially just getting to know her as a person. She does a female hockey camp in the summer, girls camp, and she gives all the proceeds to grow in the game in our area and in Michigan. So just a good person, good human being. It's great to see people like that rewarded. So Megan Keller is my dialed-in athlete.
Yeah, awesome. I remember when the women won the gold medal, I was driving home and I was not watching the final end of the game. However, my phone was blowing up because it was such a cool goal, and obviously native to Michigan in our area. So another amazing story, and she so deserved that.
Yeah, it was cool. Awesome to see. And with that, with our Olympic, a little bit of a recap, but also again, we've been bringing many of the messages and storylines up because they're so powerful with how sports and success in sports can be had. And in particular, something that was documented 8 years ago, then again 4 years ago, and again, now this Winter Olympics is the success of Norway and how they, for the last 3 Olympic Games, have led all countries with a medal count win. So they kind of win the medal count. And there's these storylines that many of the top national broadcast companies have put together, and they've gone to Norway, they've studied it, they've interviewed the people and personnel there about how does Norway, a country of just over 5 million, have such success in the Winter Games.
Right.
So I know that you've seen some of that, but really what they boil it down to is just the joy of sports.
Yeah, and if you don't know already, Norway as a country, from children athletics, it is not anywhere near the way that the United States runs their athletic programs. From ages birth until 13 years old, 12 to 13 roughly, 13. It's mostly all volunteer based, and they provide the gear, they provide the staff, and it is essentially just a way for kids to try as many sports as they want, have fun, make friends, community-based system. They don't keep score, and
their message at the core of that is they don't call it training. They just say, hey, we're going skiing. So they don't have that overwhelming feeling of being hyper-focused on one singular sport, or really just calling themselves even athletes. At that time, it's just, hey, this is our way of life. We're going to go to the mountain and ski.
Yeah, we're just going to go out and play.
Yeah, it's their national sport too. So skiing, obviously, they invented even some of these races that take place with the certain cross-country races because it's so prevalent there. But yeah, it's just, say we're going skiing. It's just a way of life. And the reason they bring that up is because there's been a handful of U.S. reporters and companies that go over there and they're like, explain this to us. How do you not keep score? How do you just say, hey, go have fun? But yet when we get to these Olympic Games, these athletes that by the time they're in their 20s, they're dominating on the world stage.
Right. So how does that even happen? How do you go from having fun at 13, which I remember myself at 13, I cared about what the score was. I wanted to know who won or lost. So how do these kids adapt to that?
Well, that's the puzzling piece, right? Because we see how competitiveness is an important skill. Being competitive is one of the most crucial skills you can have in order to make it.
Yeah, and it's ingrained in a lot of people in sports,
right?
Or
so
athletes.
What they've said time and time again is at that age range of 13, they become a teenager, starting to grow and mature as a human being. They then give the athletes that choice whether they want to pursue that more intense route and try to make those club-based teams, what we would kind of consider the hockey clubs that we start at 7 and 8 years old. Mm-hmm. They allow the athletes to make that choice at 13. And so it's two-parted. They give the athletes the choice where it's not as mandated from a parent down to a 7 or 8 year old kid of, hyper intensive training. So they make that choice, but then there is that tryout period. So you do still have to make it. So you still, you choose to do it, and then you still have to make that competitive level. And then as you grow into that, there's this National Olympic Sports Center that they start to identify those athletes who can have resources invested into them. And then when they identify those athletes, like the hyper competitive ones, the ones that they have kind of passed the test, then all the resources are invested in them. I mean, they have all the tests and all the bells and whistles of athletic development that you can imagine, and then they really get them to peak for those next Olympics.
Yeah.
There's, like when you get to professional skiing, you go on the European circuit. So they really use that timeline of, let's say 13 by the time you're an adult at 18 to really just be all in to go pursue the professional path.
Yeah. I mean, this just raises so many questions for me because this is so different than what we have here in the United States. But how I just want to know, how do these kids know to specialize in skiing versus hockey versus bobsledding versus all these other winter sports that are so prevalent in Norway? And once they do, like, do they enjoy it? Like, how does this competitive edge and them getting to these professional ranks really happen?
Well, that's and that's the message. They want them to pursue all these sports when they're young, get those cognitive abilities developed from playing multiple sports. And from that, then you start to get to, you identify where you're going to go pursue it, but it's just basically delaying what sometimes in the U.S. our model is of starting that sports specialization at 7, 8, 9. They delay that until a later part of a child's life. So they do play all those sports. And then, it's interesting because skiing is their national sport. So I think there's just so many different tracks that you can get into from there. Mm-hmm. But it's still this kind of family-based event that everyone's doing it. You're outside, you're healthy, you're moving, and you're just establishing a healthy lifestyle, which is the other benefit to those who don't quite make it. They still now have this Norwegian way of life. So super interesting. I remember the last Olympics 4 years ago, being a part that I was running a youth hockey club at the time. USA Hockey was presenting this Norwegian way of life even 4 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was super interesting to get all the hockey people in the room. And in a sense, it was two-parted. It was like, yeah, that's cool. I agree with it. And then it was like, that'll never happen in the U.S.
Yeah, no. I mean, it makes me think, like, I had friends way back. Well, when I was playing youth hockey, the college recruiting rules were changed, and I had friends committing at 12, 13 years old. And at 12, 13 years old in Norway, these kids haven't even picked a sport they want to competitively pursue yet. So, like, I can't, like, here, we completely already have our future planned out. And in Norway, they're still having fun.
Isn't that amazing? The athlete we spoke about last week, the J.H. Klæbo, the cross-country skier, he just has 11 gold medals now in the Winter Olympics. He didn't even choose to pursue the cross-country skiing route until he was 15 years old. So your friends were committed to colleges at 12 and 13.
Yeah.
He didn't even know that he was going to be this intense cross-country skier until 15. And then he went down this path. And for the sake of the last, give or take 10 years, he's been all in on pursuing that. And it's just been the most decorated Winter Olympian of all time.
And now a message from our sponsor.
As a parent, you can see it. Your athlete has talent. They work hard. But one mistake can spiral into frustration, doubt, or shutting down completely. This is Jeff Lerg, host of this very podcast. Many young athletes are never taught how to handle pressure, failure, or expectations. Yet we expect them to perform in high-stress environments every weekend. That's why we created the Dialed and Driven Success Formula. It's a guided mentality program that helps athletes build confidence, emotional control, and personal responsibility. Skills that matter far beyond sports. This isn't about pumping kids up. It's about giving them tools they can use in competition, in school, and in life. If you want to help your athlete develop real mental strength, not just short-term motivation, visit dialedandrivenmentality.com to learn more. Strong athletes are built physically. Resilient athletes are built mentally.
Something that I also thought was very intriguing from these past Olympics is doing a little bit more research on just the United States and their athletes and how many athletes that we have in these recent Winter Olympics in comparison to Norway. Norway only has about 5 million people. We have 300 million people? Not too sure. Don't quote me on the statistics on that. But because Norway has this longevity, we want these kids to wait until they're older to really excel and be competitive in these sports, like preach about longevity. It helps them stay with their sport. Well, something that I noticed is that these Norwegian athletes, in at least the recent Winter Olympics, they're roughly around 20, 30, which in comparison to the United States, we have athletes as young as 15. And the oldest I saw, which he's a little bit of an outlier, but he's a 52-year-old curler for the United States. So, I mean, like you mentioned last week's episode, we have the bobsledder, 41. Mm-hmm. There's another handful of...
A skier, 35, a little bit later. Yeah.
Yeah, which are considered older athletes for that competitive level. And our Norwegian athletes, our friends over there, they stop at like late 20s, early 30s and don't continue with their sport. So I really wonder, like, what is the reason for that? And our United States athletes just keep going.
Yeah, who knows? We don't have all the data, but I will speculate that the way their sports are structured, you know, they're built, those sports that they're really dominating the world on are really anaerobic based, you know, so as you get older, I think it's tougher to keep the high peak of the anaerobic. Like, could you imagine the 50-kilometer cross-country race? Like, you're going uphill, like you're sprinting. No. So I would imagine maybe it has something to do with that, or just the bigger population pool. But they really that is the curve. They have that delayed starting point of specializing, and then they just specialize for that core time frame of their lives from 13, 14 into the end of their athletic career. And then what they're proud of is that whether you're on that path or not, you're still establishing this healthy lifestyle. Yeah. You know, of course, there's going to be that time period for the athletes and friends of the athletes when you get to that 13, 14 age range where some people might make it and others won't, but they just delay that time frame to a more mature person. So it's never going to be perfect in sports. There's always going to be a pyramid where people have to fall off the side and only the top make it. But anyway, it's interesting, their way of life, because again, it was documented, you know, and it kind of sparked my memory from 4 years ago when it was documented, and they did it again. The other area where this joy of sports was really noticeable, I know you had mentioned Alyssa Liu previously, prior to the Olympics. I think we were talking about some athletes to keep an eye on, and you called your shot.
Yeah, I did call my shot. I would say that actually, because I did say that she's probably going to make the Olympics way back before she was even selected. And she did. And cool enough, she won 2 gold medals in the team event figure skating and in her solo performance. I believe it was the solo short performance. Not that I know anything really about figure skating, but she absolutely dialed in her way, because I watched her performance and I just loved that the commentators were like, yeah, she's just doing her thing. No pressure on her. She's just having fun. She's going with the flow. Everything is so just calm, relaxed. You can tell she has no nerves. And they were like, she doesn't care if she medals at all. But the way that she's skating, she will probably end up on the podium. And sure enough, she got the gold.
Yeah, and it was, you know, Tara Lipinski was commentating, obviously former U.S. gold medalist, and she said it. She's like, Alyssa is showing everyone what all athletes dream of, and that's just to play and perform in this beautifully relaxed, flowed state. Like, she just looked like she had no pressure on her at all.
Yeah, not like the world's watching.
And it was. I watched it as well, and just from an athletic perspective, you could just see just the relaxed feel. Again, you don't have to know anything about figure skating, but you could just watch the athletes' mannerisms, and it was just like having fun, flowing with it, enjoying it, every second of it. And then, you know, when the previous skater and then the next skater on either side of her, when they get up and perform, you can just see the hyper rigidity. And it's like they're so tensed up internally because that moment they register how big that moment is. Whereas Alyssa, she was like just, it was cool to see and fun to watch. Again, knowing nothing about figure skating other than looking at the body mannerisms of her, and then just seeing her, you know, just nail it.
Yeah, and her story is just so incredible, very, very cool, because she quit and she said she got burnt out of the sport. And then 2022 and then 2024 made her major comeback and started competing on the world stage again, and then made the Olympics again because she did the Pyeongchang Olympics and just absolutely
she was
amazing
miserable.
athlete. Yeah, well, yeah, she was miserable. And then as she came back, she decided to have all creative rights. I don't want to say rights, but everything she wanted, everything on her creative
agenda.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It was stated like how her previous Olympics, it was Alyssa being, doing what she was told.
Yes.
And it kind of ties us back to the Norway way of life. That's the athlete is making the choice. And for her, she was, again, very well documented. She was the one making the choice on working to pursue this. And when she was calling the shots and really the one dragging the coaches into the training as compared to vice versa, that's when, this result came up. So these points kind of tie together where, really no one can find that secret sauce all the time. These are two unique cases where you see these elite athletes, get to those top levels and perform at such a high rate. They're beating the rest of the world, but yet they don't feel that stress of the moment. And again, that's the secret recipe that all athletes are looking for.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it speaks to Norway's ideology on sports and how you just want to have fun while you do it and try not to have that just high pressure competitive nature into the sport. Like sports are meant to be fun. You actually make me think of Connor Hellebuyck, and he is someone that loves hockey. He's a goaltender for the U.S. He just won the gold medal, if you didn't know, but you probably should.
Probably should. He's your former neighbor.
Yeah, he was my neighbor growing up in my childhood home. But what is so interesting about him is that he was not your typical, I guess, NHLer path to the NHL. Like, he played high school hockey, which in the state of Michigan isn't very comparable to, I feel like, a tier 1, especially in men's. He finished his senior year, right, in playing high school hockey, which by that time in boys hockey, you're usually playing high-level juniors if you're making it to the NHL. And Connor Hellebuyck took a tryout as one of the 8 goalies there at Odessa in what league?
North American Hockey League.
Yep, there you go.
NAHL for those in the hockey world.
Yeah, and what I read is that the coaches there were like, no brainer, we're taking him. Who the heck is this kid? He's a stud. And he made the team and ended up having a standout performance for Odessa. And then as he's getting older, getting recruited, have the possibility of playing NCAA, only one Division I school. Do you know what the school that was?
UMass Lowell.
Yeah, he played at UMass Lowell. And do you know what happened to him in his first ever game?
First ever game, I do not know. I know he had success there over time.
Yeah, so at UMass Lowell, his first game that he played, he got pulled, which I feel like is... Goalies can relate to that. Mm-hmm. Your first game, just pressure gets to you, but he did not let the pressure get to him. He said that he actually over-prepared for that game, which maybe us goalies can relate, but he got pulled. I believe he sat on the bench for about 4 weeks, got his starting position back. As I spoke before, what was my answer to the question about getting to that high level? You got to want your spot back. Mm-hmm. And he wanted his spot back. So he got his spot back, and I believe he then started the rest of the year and brought UMass Lowell to their first Frozen Four appearance.
Yeah, he got on a roll, and he was someone who really just took advantage of the opportunities that were given, and that's the nature of sports. So I remember, hearing the story, the person who actually helped provide input and help get him drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. He was actually the assistant coach of mine at Michigan State. And then after his time at Michigan State, went on to be a scout for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, that's a small world.
Small world. But during his time for Michigan State, he was watching a player on playing against Connor Hellebuyck's high school team. So we went there to go watch a player on the other team. And during this high school game in Michigan, I think he put up 50-some saves, and he was kind of the star of the show. And he obviously kind of made note of who is that kid. Eventually, he made his way into juniors, into college. Years later, of course, he had done other things, but preemptively, the guy on the draft squad for Winnipeg saw him play in high school. So super cool just how all those lessons that we teach these athletes, you never know who's watching, never know who's in the building. And yeah, he had a great junior into college, pretty short though. He got out early, right into the pro ranks. And for him, from the goalie perspective, I can relate on another piece of it, in that he's been someone known on the NHL front who, when you watch him, he just looks like hyper intense when he plays. Like,
there's that gif of him sitting on the bench too before his games. He's like,
yeah,
his eyes are going,
he's like, but you watch him like during the national anthem, you can just see the fire in his eyes. And there's been some criticism toward him and the Winnipeg Jets over the years because they've had some great teams. They haven't had, the ultimate prize, the Stanley Cup, through 7-game series, which is of course the toughest prize in all sports. But for him, he got onto this 1-game set, single elimination type battle, kind of like NCAA championships, where you can really just rise up to all those years of training. And more than likely for him, that hyper intense path of preparation, you can do that for 1 game, and find that success. And he made all the big saves at the right time. So again, another name that we get to see and know just from our area, having a huge impact on the world stage. And yeah, I didn't know that until you told me he was your former neighbor.
Well, I mean, I hope I got the stats right, but I will say another cool thing that I saw was a lot of people are complaining, probably the Winnipeg fans, that he's not a winner. Well, he just won a gold medal. So
yeah,
Winnipeg fans.
My guess is he's going to have that paddle save just planted somewhere in his house. That's pretty much the monumental moment of his athletic career. So pretty cool. We'll see if he can get to the ultimate prize in the NHL, the Stanley Cup. But for the U.S. born players, and especially a goalie like myself and you as well, female goalie from Michigan, like we saw a lot of those athletes have a great impact, and the joy is in the sport. You can see, again, you look at grown men, what sports does, the amount of emotion that gets poured into that when they score the OT winner to win the gold, and then from the girls market, female market, when they score, it's like you're just little kids again.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And there's been so many stories come out and so many watch parties of the gold medal games, and it's just so cool to see all these people coming together and forming just such a good community, and just watching all these players. One of my favorite ones, actually, it was a youth girls two youth girls teams playing, I think out in Missouri, and they were about to go for a face-off when the girls were playing, and someone in the stands yelled, "The girls just won the gold!" And all the girls on the ice, they're probably like 12, 11 years old, just cheering, going so crazy. It was so cute. So
yeah, it is cool. Sports brings people together, and for us being with the positions we're in now, just we've enjoyed working through this type of platform on a podcast, or the company that we run with our coaching and mentoring services. Like we enjoy trying to share our experiences, but we find it's always easier when you can see it happen. And how many times through the years have we talked about to our athletes and goalies, like, just have fun, take a breath, relax, enjoy yourself. Well, we just saw many athletes on the biggest stage in the world go enjoy themselves and find success. And that's really the key message of recapping the Olympics one more time.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, there was a lot of Michigan-based athletes playing in the Olympics. I know everyone on the ice, when the men won the gold medal, were all Michiganders. And I mean, what else do you think we're going to talk about in terms of these Olympics?
Well, just all the lessons that we've learned. I mean, one of the best phrases that I was ever taught as a kid is, if you want to find success, copy those who've been there before you. So let's see what else we can learn from the most amazing athletes in the world with all sports. Very fun few weeks viewing and watching and talking about the Olympics. Of course, now we'll circle our way back into the modern day sports world with playoff hockey upcoming soon enough, and you get to see the intensity rise again. And amongst the other activities, the youth hockey state and regional championships are going on, which again, that's the athletes' time to rise up. And one other thing I want to mention to those listening on YouTube is you'll take a peek at some of the settings around us. We're currently in the middle of remodeling our studio. So we call it our studio. It's our podcast setting. But as the weeks go on, you will notice some changes taking place. And once we have our final product, I'll kind of keep it in suspense for now. But once we have that complete, we'll make sure you see it and hear about it, because we've been excited to put this podcast together. That gives us a reminder for each of you that if you have enjoyed our content, please make sure you subscribe or leave a review. It's only going to help us continue to keep this thing going. And to all of our athletes, as a reminder to go out there, set your goals, reach for the stars, and stay dialed and driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success.
And that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please give us a like, leave us a review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But most importantly, we would love for you to sign up to our free newsletter. Visit our website, Dialed and Driven Mentality. See you next week.
Jeff Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.